Welcome to the Stupid Monkey Philosophy Channel, a Trusty Ape co-production. I'm your host, Kevin Chaos. Don't forget to subscribe, share the content with your friends. If you are able, please consider supporting the channel via one-time donation to my PayPal account, monthly subscription to my Patreon, or by purchasing downloadable music content via my Reverb Nation or Bandcamp pages. Links in the description below. For inquiries and collaborations, please contact me at stupidmonkeyphilosophy@gmail.com. That's stupidmonkeyphilosophy, all lowercase, all together, at gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Hello, Stupid Monkey back here. Early access on this one, as usual, for Patreon subscribers. Encourage you to subscribe to Patreon if you have not. I'm going to be posting a lot more content over there. I've just added the $1 tier, so now we have the $1, $3, and $5 tiers. I'm going to be changing up a little bit of how the content is distributed over there. So $1 subscribers will get a limited selection of content per month, but for the full for all of the content, obviously you'll have to go to the highest $5 tier. Of course, you can also put in enter a custom amount. And I'll probably be doing a new tour of the page, and kind of revamping over there, and working on stuff on Patreon exclusively over the next week or so. I'll still be doing the shorts or meditations by Marcus Aurelius over here, and then we'll come back to John Locke probably in about a week. And I'll try to fix up my notes in my Google Docs there as well. All right, hope everyone is having a lovely Thursday. Mine's going fairly decently so far. A little bit of stress this morning, but we're not going to let it bog us down. All right, we'll continue reading from John Locke's second essay, the two treatises of government here. We are at 69. We're in chapter 6, point 69. And again, this is of paternal power. To recap a little bit, John Locke has a pretty liberal view on the rights of women in the lives of their children for his time and place, I think. So that is a plus. We can kind of jive with that. You know what? I forgot to put my invite in on Patreon, but I'm just going to put it in the comments here. If anybody does want to come by, I'm a little bit of a limited time frame right now, but I can probably entertain a little bit extra if anybody wants to talk about this stuff. All right, so 69. The first part, then, of paternal power, or rather duty, which is education, belongs so to the father that it terminates at a certain season. So to the father that it terminates at a certain season. So he has to educate his child to a certain age, which differs in different places. When the business of education is over, it ceases of itself, and is also alienable before. I'm not sure exactly what that. I guess you can end the project of education earlier than drop out. Okay, continued. For a man may put the tuition of his sons in other hands, and he that has made his son an apprentice to another has just discharged him, during that time, of a great part of his obedience both to himself and to his mother. But all the duty of honor, the other part, remains nevertheless entire to them. Nothing can cancel that. It is so inseparable from them both that the father's authority cannot dispossess the mother of this right, nor can any man discharge his son from honoring her that bore him. Again, very liberal, Locke's view on women here. But both these are very far from a power to make laws and enforcing them with penalties that may reach estate, liberty, limbs, and life. These are very, right. So he's still not the lawgiver over the son. This is an entirely different concept in Locke's view. Continue. The power of commanding ends with nonage, and though after that honor and respect, support and defense, and whatsoever gratitude can oblige a man to, for the highest benefits he is naturally capable to be always due from a son to his parents. Yet all this puts no scepter into the father's hand, no sovereign power of commanding. He has no dominion over his son's property or actions, nor any right that his will should prescribe to his sons in all things. However, it may become his son, in many things, not very inconvenient to him and his family, to pay a deference to it. So I want to look up this term, nonage, because we've been hearing it a lot in this part of the essay, and it's a period of immaturity or youth. So I guess it's similar to the word minority in the sense of being before the age of consent or responsibility. So it's synonymous with that, I suppose. Very good. 70. A man may owe honor and respect to an ancient or wise man, defense to his child or friend, relief and support to the distressed, and gratitude to a benefactor, to such a degree that all he has, all he can do, cannot sufficiently pay it. But all these give no authority, no right of making laws to anyone over him for whom they are owing, and it is plain all this is due not to the bare title of his father, not only because, as has been said, it is owing to the mother too, but because these obligations to parents and the degrees of what is required of children may be varied by the different care and kindness, trouble and expense, is often employed upon one child more than another. Right? Could be favoritism, could be truly a greater need, but not all children will receive the same type of rearing. It's individual to the child. Again, very progressive view. 71. This shows the reason how it comes to pass that parents in societies, where they themselves are subjects, retain a power over their children, and have as much right to their subjection as those who are in the state of nature, which could not possibly be if all political power were only paternal, and that in truth they were one and the same thing. For then, all paternal power being in the prince, the subject could naturally have none of it. But these two powers, political and paternal, are so perfectly distinct and separate, and built upon so different foundations, and given to so different ends, that every subject that is a father has as much a paternal power over his children as the prince has over his, and every prince that has parents owes them as much filial duty and obedience as the meanest of his subjects do to theirs, and can therefore contain not any part or degree of that kind of dominion which a prince or magistrate has over his subject. 72. Though the obligation on the parents to bring up their children and the obligation on children to honor their parents contain all the power on the one hand and submission on the other, which are proper to this relation, yet there is another power ordinarily in the father, whereby he has a tie on the obedience of his children, which, though it be common to him with other men, yet the occasions of showing it almost constantly happening to the fathers in their private families, and in instances of it elsewhere being rare, and less taken notice of, it passes in the world for a part of paternal jurisdiction. And this is the power men generally have to bestow their estates on those who please them best. The possession of the father being the expectation and inheritance of the children ordinarily, in certain proportions according to the law and custom of each country, yet it is commonly in the father's power to bestow it with a more sparing or liberal hand, according as the behavior of this or that child hath comported with his will and humor. So daddy's favorite's going to get the biggest share of the inheritance money, right? Right. 73. This is no small tie to the obedience of children, and their being always annexed to the enjoyment of land a submission to the government of the country of which that land is part. It has been commonly supposed that a father could oblige his posterity to that government of which he himself was a subject, that his compact held them, whereas it being only a necessary condition annexed to the land which is under that government, reaches only those who will take it on that condition, and so is no natural tie or engagement, but a voluntary submission, for every man's children being, by nature, as free as himself or any of his ancestors ever were, may, whilst they are in that freedom, choose what society they will join themselves to, what commonwealth they will put themselves under. But if they will enjoy the inheritance of their ancestors, they must take it on the same terms their ancestors had it, and submit to all the conditions annexed to such a possession. So I guess Locke is saying here that if a man comes of age in his time, he thinks this person should be able to just kind of move to whatever country they want. But if they do, they might forfeit the inheritance of their father. I guess. Kind of. I don't know how that works out exactly. By this power indeed, fathers oblige their children to obedience to themselves, even when they are past minority, and most commonly, too, subject them to this or that political power. But neither of these by any peculiar right of fatherhood, but by the reward they have in their hands to enforce and recompense such a compliance, and is no more power than what a Frenchman has over an Englishman, who, by the hopes of an estate he will leave him, will certainly have a strong tie on his obedience. And if, when it is left him, he will enjoy it, he must certainly take it upon the conditions annexed to the possession of land in that country where it lies, whether it be France or England. To mute briefly. An observation I was making just a moment ago is that I'm fairly certain in the English Commonwealth at that time, um, women weren't even allowed to have property, right? So as progressive as some of these ideas seem, women are responsible for and um, uh, have a maternal power over their children. In Locke's view, that's progressive, right? But that's why it says it's the property of the father, because the woman still owns no property, right? Like she can't own anything. Her husband has to own everything for her. I guess is the way that works. I'm fairly certain, anyway. If I'm wrong, feel free to let me know, of course. I always love to stand corrected when I'm wrong. So, continue. 74. To conclude, then, though the father's power of commanding extends no farther than the minority of his children, and to a degree only fit for the discipline and government of that age, and though that honor and respect, and all that which the Latins call piety, which they indispensably owe their parents all their lifetime, and in all estates with all that support and defense is due to them, gives the father no power of governing, i.e., making laws and exacting penalties on his children, though by this he has no dominion over the property or actions of his son. Yet it is obvious to conceive how easy it was in the first ages of the world, and in places still where the thinness of people gives families leave to separate into unpossessed quarters, and they have room to remove and plant themselves in yet vacant habitation, for the father of the family to become the prince of it. He had been a ruler from the beginning of the infancy of his children, and when they were grown up, since without some government it would be hard for them to live together, it was the likeliest it should, by the express or tacit consent of the children, be in the father, where it seemed, without any change, barely to continue. So I guess Locke is positing here that um, before government, if there were like vacant lands, males of age would leave the habitation of their father, because the father would become like a lord to them, and they would lording their own lands. I guess. Very long-winded there. Okay, continued. And when indeed nothing was more required to it than the permitting the father to exercise alone in his family that executive power of the law of nature which every free man naturally hath, and by that permission resigning up to him a monarchical power, whilst they remained in it. But this was not by any paternal right, but only by the consent of his children, it is evident from hence that nobody doubts but if a stranger, whom chance or business had brought to his family, had there killed any of his children, or committed any other act, he might condemn and put them to death, or otherwise have punished him as well as any of his children. Ooh. So, okay, that took a turn right there. So if he kills your kid or otherwise harms them, you can kill them and punish their children. That's a period, and this is the beginning of a new sentence. I just wanted to clarify that it's not me; it's somebody else is responsible for this. Okay. Continued. Which was impossible he should do by virtue of any paternal authority over one who was not in his child, but by virtue of that executive power of the law of nature, which, as a man, he had right to, and he alone could punish him in his family where the respect of his children had laid by the exercise of such a power, to give way to the dignity and authority they were willing should remain in him above the rest of his family. So your kid replaces my kid, I guess. I'm unclear about that, how you get to, I guess, the sins of the father thing. So if your father sins against me, I get to punish you. Sorry, kid. Okay, right? Something like that. Somewhere near that. Right, okay. 75. Thus it was easy and almost natural for children, by a tacit and almost natural consent, to make way for the... How is it almost natural? Almost natural. To make way for the father's authority and government. They had been accustomed in their childhood to follow his direction, and to refer their little differences to him. And when they were men, who was fitter to rule them? Their little properties and less covetousness seldom afforded greater controversies, and when any should arise, where could they have a fitter umpire than he, by whose care they had every one been sustained and brought up? And who had a tenderness for them all. It is no wonder that they made no distinction betwixt minority and full age, nor looked after 21 or any other age that might make them the free disposers of themselves and fortune, when they could have no desire to be out of their pupilage. The government they had been under during it continued still to be more their protection than restraint, and they could nowhere find a greater security to their peace, liberties, and fortune than in the rule of a father. 76. Thus the natural fathers of families, by an insensible change, became the politic monarchs of them too, and as they chanced to live long, and leavable and worthy heirs for several successions or otherwise, so they laid the foundations of hereditary or elective kingdoms under several constitutions and manners, according as chance, contrivance, or occasions happened to mold them. But if princes have their titles in the father's right, and it be a sufficient proof of the natural right of fathers to political authority, because they commonly were those in whose hands we find de facto the exercise of government, I say if this argument be good, it will as strongly prove that all princes, nay, princes only, ought to be priests, since it is as certain that in the beginning the father of the family was priest, and as that he was ruler in his own household. Okay. Looks like the end of that one. We'll do political or civil society next time. So that's John Locke. I don't have a whole lot to say on the paternal powers. I will clarify, I guess, in works of philosophy, this work, we should say, is a political philosophy. So it evidently is supposedly grounded in a multitude of other kind of concepts and philosophies, if you will, not the least of which being the Bible. So, in order to follow Locke's work, we have to continue to presuppose the Abrahamic God and the truth of the divine revelations in the Bible. And that's something that's important for us to remember as secularists anytime we're analyzing this. We also have to realize that we're working with Locke on his own terms in his own times, and much of the work that we've read up until now, I think it's going to start to change to a more prescriptive. I think I did it right this time. Locke is going to begin making more like recommendations as to what the society should do. But as of now, much of this has been kind of describing how the society was as he saw it in his time, and the evolutions of society, which of course he's speaking particularly to the European societies that he was a part of. And that's important to remember. So in that context, many of his ideas for the time were very progressive. They were considered very liberal. And always remember, John Locke is considered to be, in the Enlightenment period, the father of classical liberalism. Not modern liberalism, but classical liberalism. And lest we forget, this is how you make baby steps. John Locke was making baby steps with the common people of his time. And so to those that think we don't make society or progress within society, I'd say, hey, every little bit counts. With that, I'm going to sign off. I will be bringing back Bible Study with an Atheist on the Trusty Ape channel, Trusty Ape podcast. If you're not over there, get over there. I don't know who would be over here if they're not over there, but if you're not, do that. Check out the Patreon page. More stuff coming there, more reviews, more open rooms, and more philosophy. I love philosophy. I find it fascinating. I find it exciting. I find it stimulates my mind, no matter what mood I'm in. So keep stimulating your minds. Stay trusty. If you're going to be a stupid monkey, do it philosophically, I guess, or not at all. All right, we'll see you next time. Stupid monkey out.